Hello. It's been a long time since I last posted my video. There have been lots of requests about the video on Judith Butler, gender trouble, and I have frankly not been able to record it because the weather is so hot. And since I have to record this with the fan off, which means that I sweat, which does not make for a good video. It has just rained, so the weather is very cool, so I can now record the video with the fan off and hopefully I won't sweat. So without further ado, let us actually get on with the discussion of Judith Butler's gender trouble. As you can imagine that there will be several videos because it is impossible to cover Judith Butler's gender trouble in one video. There'll be several. So I'm not very sure how much of chapter 1 I will be able to cover, but I'll still try and see what I can do. Chapter 1. So in chapter 1, Judith Butler talks about subjects of sex slash gender slash desire. And I think just to explain the title of the chapter may in itself take some time. So subjects of sex slash gender slash desire. Why does she put the oblique? Because we very well know that when we put an oblique between two words, then that automatically means that both these words are basically synonyms. They're the same, or they're of equal value. So why is it that she actually puts the oblique between sex and gender and then between gender and desire? Well, this is why she does it, is because she is primarily trying to debunk the chronology that patriarchy tells us, and also something that second wave feminism tells us, which is that you're born male and then you become a man and then you desire a woman. So there is some kind of a teleology, there's some kind of a narrative that seems to be working over here. Even in the case of second wave feminism, what they were not realizing is that when they were saying that sex is biological but gender is social, they were actually talking about a binary, right? This is the binary of nature-nurture. So they were basically talking about two things that are almost entirely different from another. One that you're born with, and the other is something that you acquire. Now, is that really what it is? And I think Judith Butler takes an entire book to tell you that that's not what it is. You are not born with a sex. It is something that is given to you. But we'll come to that later. So the way in which she marks the fact that sex and gender and desire, they are both activated at the same time at the moment of your birth, or actually not even at the moment of your birth. In some societies it is activated before you're born. So when you go for your test, and when the doctor tells you that you're going to be expecting a girl or you're expecting a boy, that is when the planning starts. So your life is planned out even before you're born, and that planning begins to happen the moment your sex is declared by the doctor. It's not something that you choose, it is something that is declared by the doctor. Anyway, be that as it may, let us actually get into the chapter as such. Now, the chapter is divided into several sections. In the first section, she basically says that I quite understand feminists talking about women's rights, feminists talking about women, about the empowerment of the woman, but what feminists don't seem to realize is that the term woman itself is a patriarchal invention. So she actually questions the whole idea of women's rights or women's liberation, and she says, wait, before we talk about all of that, can we decide who is this person called woman? what makes a woman. And then she goes on to say that this is nothing but a juridical linguistic production. So this is a juridical linguistic production. Woman is produced through law, and woman is produced through language. There is nothing biological about woman whatsoever. So she begins her book with this fairly radical statement. And then she goes on to say that the term woman is not inclusive enough. She says it's not inclusive enough because she says that it does not include subjectivities that do not work along the man-woman relationally defined binary. Because of the way in which woman is defined in contradistinction to man. So therefore the idea is that the woman does not exist except in relation to man. Now, if a woman does not exist except in relation to man, what about those women who never establish relationships with men? What happens to their womanhood? So look at the way in which, in actually talking about woman, gender, she is also talking about heterosexuality, so desire. So right at the very beginning, she is showing you a very clear relationship between the way in which the heteronorm is constructed, and in order to consolidate the heteronorm, man is constructed, woman is constructed. So therefore, these definitions are actually tied to a bigger design of heterosexuality. And then she goes on to say, even in the very first section, she says that I understand that this is the problem, but I can also tell you what the solution is. And right at the beginning, she tells you that the way forward for feminism should therefore be to declare the norm a variable construction of identity. So therefore, the norm should be that your identity can be variable. This is very post-structuralist. So she's primarily saying that my concept of identity is going to be primarily one in which instability is going to be, well, for the want of a better word, stable. So therefore, if we incorporate change into the way in which we look at identity, then we begin to understand that what is actually happening over here is that the stability that patriarchy expects from identity, that stability is going to be put in danger, and that is exactly what Judith Butler wants. So in order to do that, she then goes on to talk about the way in which feminists have traditionally talked about men and women, and primarily the way in which they've talked about language. So here she uses the examples of Simone de Beauvoir on the one hand and Luce Irigaray on the other. Now, in the case of Simone de Beauvoir, she says that what Simone de Beauvoir seems to be saying is that all of culture, all of language, everything is primarily produced by men. And so if all of this is primarily produced by men, then what is really happening is that the voice of the woman, or the subject position of the woman, is nowhere. So basically in culture that we have, the woman doesn't exist. What exists is men's creation of women. So therefore women are not biologically produced. Women are produced by men. So that is what Simone de Beauvoir says. But on the other hand, you've got Luce Irigaray. Now what Irigaray seems to be saying is that pretty much similar, but what she seems to be saying is that there is nothing outside the masculine text, and therefore the woman is also a part of the masculine text. So therefore, as far as Simone de Beauvoir is concerned, the woman is the absolute other. As far as Irigaray is concerned, no, woman is not the absolute other. The woman is subsumed within the culture that men produced. But in either case, whether you look at Simone de Beauvoir or whether you look at Lucy Irigaray, and this is where I think there's a very interesting sort of French pun that Judith Butler uses. She says that when she's talking about Irigaray, she says that the woman is still the man encore, that is ENCORE, encore, and is patriarchy encore, ENCORPS. But you see, they both sound the same. Encore, ENCORE, which means still, persistent. Encore, ENCORPS, in the body, embodied. So therefore, what we are going to conclude this particular video with is that feminists identify women as the embodiment of patriarchy. So therefore, the female body becomes the patriarchal body. So therefore, what happens is that the male body becomes disembodied. So therefore, which is why I'm very fond of saying in my class, men don't have bodies. Well, men don't have bodies in the sense that men don't have bodies that are marked by gender. Men function in a patriarchal society as people, as Amadmi, right? So therefore, that is the way in which men function in a patriarchal society. They function as the Amadmi, unmarked by gender, human beings. Women exist in patriarchal society as marked bodies, as women. We're going to stop here for this particular video. In the next video, we are going to continue with further discussion of chapter 1 of Judith Butler's Gender Trouble. Thank you.